Art of Rally is a racing game from Fun Skeletor, the makers of Absolute Drift, which I got to play through the Xbox Game Pass. As the name suggests, it's a game about rallying, and the general theme of the game is the rise of Group B, one of the most dangerous motorsport classes in history. When I first noticed it, I thought I was going to get a similar experience to their previous title, but with a different theme. To my surprise, it did indeed play with the outside camera perspective and a certain focus on sideways action and car control, but expanded it to a whole new level. The camera is at more of an angle, so you can see the road ahead, and there are a lot more real-world elements which tend to be common in rally games, like different track surfaces, weather conditions, times of day, and even vehicle damage that is not just cosmetic. There are a lot more cars to choose from, and they feel a lot more different than each other, even within the same category. The game has several classic game modes, like Time Attack and Custom Rally, which are self-explanatory, but others exhibit the most content, those being Career and Free Roll. In Career mode, you go through several different rallying categories, each one having several of what I would call a level, which represents a year of the season in that category. Each of these levels has one or more rallies, and in order to complete them you have to finish all of the stages in succession, on the difficulty settings and car of your choosing. This is the mode I've played the most, and I enjoyed how unrestricted it is. In order to keep progressing, all you need to do is reach the end of the stages, making it so you can customize the difficulty yourself, rather than having to finish above a certain position. To complement this, there are several difficulty levels for both opponent speed and damage severity. I personally started with the default difficulty level and slowly increased the pace of my opponents as I got better to keep it more competitive, eventually using the highest difficulty on the last category, and the game felt harder than other rallying games I've played. I left the damage severity mostly untouched because I wasn't sure how it would affect my game. In default severity, I could crash a few times without feeling like my car became too hard to drive. And when it was time to repair, which happens every 2 stages, I could easily fix my car back to full strength, unless I really bottled it, of course. I tried increasing damage severity and it really upped the stakes. One bad crash and damage was instantly noticeable, which I'm sure a lot of the more hardcore audience will enjoy. Meanwhile, in Free Roam, we have a game mode where you can roam around different locations, which are relatively big maps, and find collectibles. You start in one location, and the main goal is to find the word Rally, R-A-L-L-Y, in order to unlock new locations. This mode gives a similar experience to Absolute Drift, where you would also travel to a series of smaller maps, collecting items and completing drift challenges and entering races, but without the challenges and the races, which gives it a bit of a Tony Hawk game vibe instead. To cap it all off, there is online events, which is the game mode that will get you playing every day. In this mode, there are 2 challenges, one that rotates every day and another that rotates every week. The daily event is a single stage, while the weekly event is, as far as I could tell, a 4-stage rally. And in both cases, players are assigned the same car and compete for the fastest time on the leaderboards. Talking details, in terms of basic mechanics and driving inputs, it's about what you'd expect from any racing game of this time. The stages are pre-made, but the rallies all seem to be randomly generated from the pool of stages for a specific country. The weather and daytime are mutually exclusive, so you can't have, for example, night and fog. You can only have night or fog as a weather option. The cars all drive very different, and those differences are most noticeable across the classes. As the engine power ramps up and power curves change shapes, each car becomes their own beast. A pretty unusual mechanic, which you probably have seen so far on the B-roll, is the crowds. I don't think I've ever seen anything like it in a rallying game, yet it's so simple and even feels weird to be explaining. Sometimes you might just have a crowd on the road during the stages. If you happen to go through them, they'll move out of the way, and if the headlights are on, they will also block the lights a bit, creating long shadows. As you approach the crowds, you can hear the noises they make, and they have the interesting side effect of blocking your vision a bit, meaning it's harder to see the road. I think it's a great feature that adds a lot of character and atmosphere, and it's surprising I've never seen crowds in the rally stage being represented even in a video game. Like in many other games, there's an auto-recovery system that is meant to bring you back to the road if you have a huge crash, without having to go to the menu when it's clearly obvious you've messed up. In this game, that mechanic works by automatically respawning you if you get too far away from the track, making the playable area effectively a bigger road that follows the track. This mechanic doubles as a form of stopping the player from going too off-road or cutting huge sections of the track. problem other games solve with checkpoints. In general, it works well and does what it's supposed to, but its biggest problem is that when you go a little too wide or cut the corner a bit too much and cross the threshold, your car gets recovered, bringing you to a stop and slapping you with a 5-second recovery penalty. I don't think there's anything wrong with the existence of the mechanic, but I wish it had what I would like to see was some kind of a warning, either some kind of visual marker of the threshold, perhaps in the form of a tape line, which you see sometimes in rally events, or an audio cue which would have to the atmosphere. The solution I had in my head was, since they have the crowds mechanic, perhaps make it so there is the sound of the crowd gasping when you cross a midway point between the road and the recovery threshold, adding to the dangerous atmosphere of going off the road. Otherwise, it becomes hard to determine if you can cut certain corners. Sometimes you might be able to cut a huge amount, other times you get recovered and lose a bunch of time, which just plain sucks when you're trying to go as fast as you can. So what kind of feedback do I have for this game? One quick change that I think could be easily implemented is allowing the player to choose the HUD position to a different spot. The HUD is at the bottom of the screen, but because of the camera view, you look at the top of the screen to see the road ahead. This means that if you want to see the HUD, you have to look all the way down and maybe lose track of what's in front. I think it would be nice if you could move the HUD to the top of the screen. Simple as that. I hope it's simple anyway. Relating to not being able to see in front, another feature that I often feel the lack of are pace notes. It's incredible how helpful someone telling you what's coming can be when you don't have that luxury. In most rallying games, that's a bit of a given feature, and I think this game shows why. Even though you have an outside view of the car, there are still many situations where you can't really see where you're going, or what the next corner is like, because your view is obstructed by trees, rocks, crowds, or even the elevation changes. This means that if you want to go the fastest, you have to know the stages by heart, which creates a bit of a bad feeling for newer players. Knowing the stages will always be an advantage, but pace notes help bridge that gap immensely and adds another bit of rallying spirit to the game. And finally, I don't think it's a feature the game really requires, it's just cool, but I like to be able to make slight tweaks to the car during repair opportunities, allowing you to maybe lengthen the gears when you're going to a stage with more straights, or maybe stiffen or loosen the suspension depending on how bumpy the track is. To conclude, I think Art of Rally is a very cool game. I definitely recommend it to anyone who likes racing games in general, especially rally nerds. Even though it might not be your classic rally simulator, it's very fun and it showcases the sport in a fun light, and it's fun to play.